most people in prison don't have people advocating for them, and most of them they just don't have their voice. They're not they're a lot of them aren't like you and I, where we're fighters and we're vocal and we're not just going to lay down. And so and a lot of them are scared too. If you have 10 years to do, and if you complain or somebody that you love complains, and you're going to end up in the shoe, and you're going to be abused, and you're going to be targeted, and now your terrible prison experience is going to be made worse. Are you really going to fight for yourself? Are you really going to speak up? No, most women are just, they're going to fold. They're not going to say anything. They're going to be silent and they're going to be quiet because they're just trying to survive this situation. And unfortunately, um, there is retaliation. And so if women did speak up for themselves, they are likely to be targeted. I mean, not that it's a huge retaliation, but just as an example, um, when I got into federal prison in Hazleton in West Virginia, our average meal, I timed them. It was between 8 and 11 minutes per meal. And I also timed that it takes 3 minutes to eat an apple. So, unless you are shoving the food in your face and swallowing with chew, you don't have enough time to eat your meal. And if you don't have money for commissary, and plus there's not any healthy food on commissary anyway, or very little. So you need that chow hall food. And so they're kicking you out before you have time to eat. And then if you do try to say, take your food with you back to your unit, there's officers outside the chow hall patting you down and taking your food like it's contraband. The whole thing makes no sense. It's mind blowing. They pat you down like it's like you have drugs or something. And it's like, I just want to eat my tortilla and you didn't give me time. And so I found in policy, it said you get at least 20 minutes of dining time to eat. So I started using that policy. Policy is valuable. It's rules. They have to listen to it. And I was never disrespectful with them, with the officers. But Riley Williams and I, one time, were like, I only got 12 minutes to eat. Can I please finish my food? And the response to that was go to the lieutenant's bench, which we did. And we sat there for a long time. And then we're taken into an office which had like a half a dozen other officers in it, which was very intimidating. And I was told the stopwatch that I had bought off commissary, because I had just a regular watch with a stopwatch on it. My watch must be broken. And so I asked to see their surveillance, because you have cameras everywhere. And they said, we watched their surveillance. You got your 20 minutes to eat. No, you can't see it. And then they fired Riley Williams from her job. And it was just very intimidating. And another time was I was called to the office was when I started complaining about visiting, because at first visiting was literally a room full of plastic chairs, and you had no food for people visiting. You had no board games. The children's room wasn't open. It was literally like, even if you're 2 years old, you're going to come sit in this chair. And if you make too much noise, your visit's over. You have to leave. There's no touching. And with women's facilities, with it being a low facility, it's not supposed to be like that. And so I studied policy and started filing the correct grievance forms to force them to fix it, because they were operating on COVID policy still, which is why it was like that. We're not in COVID anymore. Make it normal. This is our families we're talking about. Um, it just make it normal. And so when I started filing those forms, the captain then called me to the office, and he literally screamed at me, if food is so important, how about I take away your visitation completely? And I was just like taken aback, because like, why is this over 6 foot tall man yelling and screaming at me because I want to see my kids? And it didn't make any sense to me. And so um eventually they did end up changing some things, but it's like an uphill battle. I was in there for a year, and by the end of the year, at least they had opened the children's room and they had put in board games, and they were letting me hold children under 5 at the table. But, for 6 months, there was things happening like, you get a strip search one time coming out of visitation, which makes sense. You're with the public, you're going to have to get searched in a prison. But for the first 6 months, they were giving me an extra strip search, even going into visiting, which they weren't supposed to be doing. And then they were using things like a flashlight, doing the strip search incorrectly, making me bend over incorrectly, um, looking in my vagina with a flashlight. And it just, why is this happening in America? I'm in here for breaking a window because I was in protest because I love my country and this is my reward. If they just put my name in, rachelpowell.com or .org, I have a website with a link that will go there. That's really the easiest way, is just to know my name. And so I'm just back on Facebook. I'm just back on Instagram. I said I would never go back to those platforms again because they gave me the boot before I had even turned myself in. I was like, I'm never going back, never going to do it. And yet here I am, like literally just this month, I'm back on those. So they can find me there, and I'm going to start making some videos. Um, and so they'll be able to find me on YouTube and Rumble. I journaled my whole year in prison. Every single day I wrote down, I journaled. And so as I start typing out my journaling paperwork, I'll probably be making videos and sharing my experiences there. So people really might want to find me because it should be interesting and eye-opening for them. And as I go through my paperwork as well, I got all my legal documents sent back from prison, and so I have a lot of forms that I filed that I'll be able to prove that the BOP is not doing what it should, that they are interfering with um, the grievance process. And anybody out there that really cares, they really want to know what's going on in the BOP, find me, follow me, because I'll be sharing that information as I go through it. And it's going to be slow going because there's just so much. And, I am going to be moving again. And, just there's life and work to be done. But I'm going to go through it and share.
Now that you know where we've been, find out where we're going. Tune in to Ladies Love Politics, where you can stay informed without going insane.